everybody. This is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker. Every week we talk about how to love ourselves, others, and a higher nature, how to improve our finances, relationships, career, mental, and spiritual health. And now with the pandemic, a lot of people are suffering economically, financially. And we've recently been talking about the mentality of wealth and success. And we have a great guest on today that's going to help us with that. This is Amber Lilyestrom, who is a former Division I athlete, played college soccer, was a marketing expert also at the college level, branding, has a master's in sports administration. She's now a branding coach, author, speaker, podcaster, featured on Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur, Working Mother magazine. She does a seminar called Ignite Your Soul, and she's known as a dream alchemist and Mamapreneur, which is kind of a cool term. Welcome, Amber, to the show.
Thank you, Alex. I'm so excited to be here.
It's wonderful. Now, you have an interesting background. You were in sports, you were in marketing, and then you had a spiritual awakening, which I want to get to. And you kind of talk about having your own business as a spiritual experience. You talk about being authentic to yourself and expressing your soul and things like that. And you have certain interesting terms. I want you to tell me a little bit about it. You say failure is not an option, ignite your soul, and you were born for this. Can you tell us a little bit about those terms? How does that tie into business and spirituality?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that the bigger belief around all of the things that I might create and say is really that I think our lives are about coming home to the truth of who we really are. It's this discovery process. It's this aborning process. And so when we talk about the granular of, failure is not an option, I don't see how we could fail at our soul's calling, and learning more about ourselves as we go. And so I think it's a term that isn't necessarily that helpful when failure just is simply information, it's data to guide us along the path. And that reformation of that belief has been extremely helpful along the way to let that fear of failing end when it comes to what my soul's calling truly is. And so my program Born for This is really that, it's a group and a space to welcome women in, and a few good men here and there. I work with men as well, but predominantly women who feel that sense. And I'm sure you can relate to this, Alex, where they have this idea of something they want to do. They have this deeper purpose, but they just don't know necessarily how to wade into the waters to create that reality and to change the course of history for their lives. And so really my work is about that. It's about helping people find their way through purpose and to create the sacred containers, which ultimately is the bigger picture of your brand and the elements inside of your brand that create transformation and give people the time and space to explore and to expand into the fullness of who they are.
That's very interestingly said. Now, sacred container, that's kind of a nice term.
Yeah.
So we say that our bodies are kind of the containers of the soul.
Yeah.
So tell us more about that. So what is that internal thing that we're talking about? In Spanish, we have a word called don or don divino, which means gift from God. Our great talent. As they say in the New Testament, they talk about the parable of the talents. So tell us a little bit about the container of the soul. How does that work?
Yeah, well, I think you said it there with we have these bodies, which are our sacred chance to be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation without these physical bodies in this particular way. And so that's something I'm always grateful for. But I do think that our brand is a sacred opportunity for us to be who we really are in business and for us to be able to intersect and interact with people by creating this brand. And I think it's really important to denote that I think a lot of folks are maybe confused about what a brand is or what branding is. And just like a soul, you can't hold it, you can't grab it. It's not tangible. And brands are really the same thing. And so, building your brand, it's like the soul of your business. You can't put it in a box, but you can feel it. And I think that is what I am here to help people extract, and get to with those different actions that we take to emote and to get to that feeling space.
I see like a spiritual thread running through your work. Yeah. And you had a very interesting experience. You were pregnant and you said you had a near-death experience. You couldn't breathe. And all of a sudden your mind shifted. You left your career in sports management, which was very successful in marketing. And you started your own coaching and writing and all that. And then you became a mother as well. So tell us about that. That's the whole spiritual transformation as well.
It really was. I think motherhood in and of itself is a total spiritual transformation, parenthood in general, right? If we zoom out for all of us. but carrying the body, having two hearts inside of you at the same time, feeling someone else's soul with you. It's profound. And on the day of my daughter's birth, I ended up having an emergency cesarean section and had some complications with the anesthesia or the block, if you will, for when they were putting me under for that part of the procedure. And I stopped breathing. Wow. And I just went through this beautiful, albeit challenging situation.
Scary,
I was in the space between, and I really think about that. I was quickly recognizing that I might not get to actually hold my daughter. I might not actually get to do this motherhood thing in the physical. And, what I was met with there after first feelings of just frustration, because I had this knowing I knew what I wanted in my life. I knew how I wanted to be serving and showing up. And the truth was, I had just been leaving it on the stove without turning on the fire. It was there, but I just wasn't doing anything for it. And I wasn't moving into the truth of what I knew for myself and for my life. And fortunately, in the space between for me, I went into this place of profound appreciation and reverence and gratitude. I had an out-of-body experience. I saw my loved ones who were at the hospital, and I just understood all of a sudden what it was really about, and the gift of love and the gift of being able to not only give love, but to receive love. And that was profound. And so, I came out of that changed, even if I didn't have the words or the capacity for being able to process it verbally yet. It was something inside of me. I like to think of it as a quantum leap in consciousness. It was just a new awareness. And add to that, I'm now holding a child, which, time just stops when you meet your child.
Yes, definitely. Well, it's very beautiful. Now, we also talk about, and you mentioned this, the idea of the coronavirus and the current situation kind of as a value shifting in society.
Yeah.
And I've done research with personality types. I wrote some books on Myers-Briggs and all that. And so we have what are called the introvert people, the internal energy people. So in some ways, we're becoming an internal society, at least right now. And even before that, with technology, everything's on demand. You can stay home, you can get entertainment, food, people can even date online and all that. So everything's really changing internally. Are we becoming an internal society, do you think?
That's a really interesting question. I think that we're
because people who are extrovert hate it, right? Are you extrovert or introvert energy, Amber?
I am an INFJ.
Oh, okay, so you're definitely internal energy. So you're okay with in some ways staying home, kind of thing.
Yeah, right? I mean this is how I wanted my life to be ultimately. However, not with the masks, not with people getting sick,
of course,
and I miss my people, and I miss events. Doing live events, being able to be in person, heart to heart with people to different experience. But I think whether we want to or not, we're being faced with the invitation to look at our own inner world in ways that many have avoided and have run from and have numbed out from. And I think that is the time is up on that.
Plus, I think you said, there could be, even though there's tragedy and suffering and unfortunately death, there is some positives. The idea that people can work from home now more. Education can be online, and we can kind of shift. We do also what's called telehealth these days. So a lot of things are changing, maybe in a positive way that could be long term. And connecting through Zoom and other methods is a positive. Now you're I call you the mystic writer, INFJ, mystic writer, someone that likes spirituality, psychology, and you're a good listener, probably a good healer kind of person. But not everyone's different, the same in personality. So I'm kind of curious. Do you think that everyone should start their own business? Because I'm thinking, we're very entrepreneurial in America and everybody wants to be rags to riches, but there are people that we call the security seekers, also known as the sensing judger types that like their stable 9 to 5, their paycheck, their pension. So how do you say to people like that? Are there some people that should not have their own business?
I think so. I think, I think we all have our own path and our own needs and the ways in which those needs get to be met. And, I have folks who I coach that they want to have their own business, and maybe they started out thinking they were going to do coaching work or consultation work. And ultimately what they're now doing is just being a support person, and maybe they're working with a whole complement of clients, but they're the behind the scenes person, and we can't live without them. I mean, the team that I have, it's so fun to talk to them about what it is that they desire, what their vision is for their life, and then to help them set up their role in our company in order to complement those personality types. Yeah.
I see. Now you said you were in marketing. I guess you're doing very well financially to a certain extent. Your husband was a police officer, and both of you quit your jobs apparently.
Yeah.
And now you have a multi-million-dollar business. You're very successful. So you must have changed what we call the money mind. And I know you have a new book out called Master Your Money Mind.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ideas and stereotypes about money. Some people think it's bad to have it. They feel guilty to have it. Other people almost worship it. They chase it as their identity. So what is the balance that we should have with money? Because there's a lot of literature out there, prosperity thinkers and law of attraction and other kind of things. So what do you think about the balance between having money and not having money?
To me, I think money is a tool to help us accomplish our goals, our objectives, help us do what we need to do, just like, the wood to burn the fire and, the water that we need to drink and we need to wash with and all of that. I mean, money really is on the same plane. We just do what you said. We worship it. We make money a god or we make it a tyrant. And I don't know that money necessarily wants to be personified. I think, I say often, money is no different than the Wi-Fi that we're using right now to have this conversation. It's a tool to help us accomplish the tasks that we need to do. And if we can look at it like that and understand that there are going to be some professions and some services and some products that are going to yield more money because they're set up that way, then you can kind of right size it. And that's really what Master Your Money Mind is about. And I think the other part of it is, we live in an abundant universe. Just look outside. Look, did you effort to make those flowers bloom? Did you have to do anything to get the leaves on the trees when the seasons changed? No. And so I remind us that everything is energy and money works the same way. Just like, getting to welcome in, like earlier before I got on this conversation with you, I was sitting here chatting with my team and a bald eagle and a hawk flew in front of my window and they were like kind of fighting in the sky. And I thought, well, that's an interesting metaphor, isn't it?
Right.
But I didn't do anything to make that happen necessarily. But look at the magical abundance I got to see just looking out my window today.
Exactly. They said the lilies of the field are beautifully clothed, even though they don't think about it.
That's right.
And the other thing is, I talk about it, money is loving energy.
Yeah.
And, that resonates probably with meaning seeker personality types like us. The idea that, we do something that you love for work and then you receive this thing called money. Well, it could be paper, it could be electronic. And then in appreciation for what you did, you take that money and then you buy goods and services and then you show appreciation to other people. So money can circulate in that way in kind of a loving, positive way, which is a different way to look at it.
Right.
Now, the other thing you talk about, you have really nice chapters that you wrote. One of them you call it the big vision. What is your big vision for your life? Napoleon Hill called it the definite purpose. For example, Edison and a lot of these great scientists and leaders had this vision and mission in life. And you say that, what is it that you want to do for service? What do you want to earn? What do you want to give and receive in terms of love? Tell us a little bit about the mission. How do we discover that big mission in our lives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think...
Which we say it was called don in Spanish, the don divino, your talent.
Yeah.
Now, some people are afraid of their talent. Typically, introverted, feeling people kind of hide it for many years. And then later on, they get into it once they accept it.
Right. Because it doesn't necessarily feel safe to bring it out into the open. It is such a sacred thing. I absolutely understand that. And I think even just, having a book out in the world is just such a tender experience to know. It's like you're sort of laid out open. Everyone's reading this thing, and it's kind of, I felt a lot of energetics around that last week when we launched it. But I think the way that you get to it, it's a lifelong journey. And I think it's about loving attention. I think it's about devotion. I think it's about noticing what makes you feel like you're coming alive, and also the opposite, and taking notes. And I think it's really, really fun. I love to do this process with my clients to fly over the timeline of their life and look at the experiences, look at how many skills you have, look at all the things that you've learned. And it's so curious how you might have had this job that was the worst. And I actually tell a story about that in Master Your Money Mind, that you just think, man, I was emptying trash cans and doing housekeeping work in the athletic department, which later became the place where I was the youngest associate athletic director in the history of the department. And I couldn't have connected those going forward. That classic quote from Steve Jobs. But I could going back. And that was the opportunity for me to make connections and to meet those administrators and to learn more about what they were doing and to ask questions. And all of those skills, being an administrator, being a mentor to students, teaching at the university, being a marketing mind, and being really dynamic in sales and all of those things, all of those skills help me in my job today.
I can see that. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
And one of the things people have is a fear, and you talk about fear and love. And we had Marianne Williamson on the show, which, when she was running for president, and talking about the whole idea of, perfect love casts out fear. And a lot of people have worries. For example, I don't have enough knowledge to do this. I'm not good enough to do this business or career, what I want to do. I can't do it. And you have an exercise where you say, think of the worries as a balloon, and you let go of the balloon.
Yeah.
And it fades away. So how does that work? How do you let your balloon worries go away? If
Yeah.
they're very strong because they kind of keep pounding you every day.
They do. But I think you have to get to the balloon moment, Alex, you have to be ready. You have to be ready to release. And I think there has to be this moment of surrender, which brings me back to the operating room scene for me. And the answer, the moment where I came back into my body and back into present time was in that decision of surrender, like really the act of surrender. And so I think it's about the exercise of looking at your life and looking at the places where you feel suffering and where suffering is holding you back. It's getting in the way of you living into your purpose and making a decision. It's about discernment. Do I want to let this go, or do I want to stay with it a little bit longer? Well, a lot of us walk around with a whole big, bunch of balloons, and some of us might float away. We've got so many balloons in that bundle. But I think over time, we get to let them go one by one on our spiritual journey and everything is a spiritual journey anyway. But you can call it your personal development journey. You can call it whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But I just love that visual of letting go instead of fighting, because I think, I have a program called the Evolutionary Entrepreneur Collective, and I didn't want to call it the Revolutionary Entrepreneur Collective, because a revolutionary, while it's powerful, the movement is powerful, it's also meaning you're fighting against something. True. You're engaged in the fight rather than allowing the evolutionary process to happen, moving in a different direction, creating a new model, innovating. And that's really always been my focus, is saying, we've got, yes, Houston, we have a problem here, but fighting the problem doesn't solve it. You're never going to get to the solution on the same frequency of the problem. And so how can we find the evolutionary path, the innovative path? That's really a philosophy for me.
I see. And then also you talk about the memory lane, or what we call money stories. Yeah. So for example, your dad struggled when you were a kid, and then they lost their house and went bankrupt. And then as an adult, you buy a big house you can't even afford. And underlying that is the emotional security needs that you have, but you don't realize that.
Correct.
So I'm sure you work with clients that may have emotional underlying currents that you have to, unearth to figure out, why are they doing this? And, is it healthy for them in a sense?
Right.
What is your experience with that part of it?
Yeah. I think the excavation process, while it would be really nice to be able to leapfrog that, it's essential. We have to look back. And so that process for me was about understanding that scene when my dad came home from work and I was really young, and I had watched a Lifetime movie with my mom a few days earlier about a mother and her daughter who were homeless. And then I put two and two together of like, oh, we're going to be homeless because dad just lost his job. I didn't know any other story, but I also didn't have the words to communicate that to my family. And so I took all this pressure on myself as a kid, even to the point where, and this comes back around to the soccer story, my dad was a Division I athlete himself. He had a scholarship to go to college. And so I knew in my mind, oh, that's a way to pay for college. And so I made a decision at 9 years old. I didn't want to be a burden to mom and dad. I'm going to find a way to be good at a sport. I'll figure out what it is. And it ended up being soccer at 9, 10. Okay. And that way I'm going to pay for myself to go to college. And so I think the reason I'm telling you this story is because you have to look back at how your brain organized that, at how your former you self did that construction, because those are the pathways, those are the patterns, those are the programs, as you know, in our brains that we continue to operate within as we get older. And I was still toggling in some of those stories as a new entrepreneur. When we have new experiences, it almost like re-traumatizes and brings forth some of these patterns that we didn't realize we were really living in. Yes. And once you have a more conscious awareness of it, once it's illuminated, right? So there's an excavation to illumination process. Right. That's when you get to go to the activation to manually work at shifting those pathways. And that's a process that I, really support my clients with as well.
Yeah. I mean, we call it in cognitive behavioral psychology, cognitive restructuring.
Yes.
You call it reframing.
Yeah.
So these money myths that we have, like, I think you said, like, money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
In Spanish, we have one that says, mucho trabajo, poco dinero, which means too much work, too little money.
Yeah.
So people grow up with these kind of self-limiting beliefs. Now, you say you have another phrase. You call it prosperity patterning. I think you said something about the more I make, the more joy I have, which may not be necessarily the case, right? It's not always a correlation with that.
Right.
And then, so basically, I think you said something like, if you have 6 months to live, how would you spend your money, your time, and energy? That sounds like a pretty good exercise. People don't really think about that. And you actually had that happen to you, right? When you were in the hospital bed.
I
Uh,
did. Yeah. Actually, my editor, she laughed. She was like, geez, you're just going right for the elbow drop here, huh? And I said, well, I mean, we don't have time to waste here, my friends. Like, let's get honest,
yes.
and actually I was watching an interview last night with Matthew McConaughey and Oprah, actually. And
Oh, okay.
he was talking about this very, this kind of question. He said, write your eulogy. And you've heard other people refer
Yeah.
that, but write your
Right.
eulogy. Think about what's going to be said
Right.
and think about, are you happy with what they're saying? Does it feel
Mm,
like really what you want? And
right.
I think that it's extremely helpful as a human to think about that future. And it frankly it was a huge catalyst for me to leave my job, because what I knew was it was not going to say associate athletic director for marketing and strategic initiatives on my headstone.
Mm,
And my life was completely lined up to be 100% focused on my career. And I knew I needed to make a change,
mm,
and I wanted to move in the direction of myself. And I think the bigger thing, Alex, was I had always felt like I was in a rush, for
mm.
like all the days of I was always rushing to something, always on to the next thing, onto
Yes.
my job, onto work, onto the next event.
Right.
And I wanted to be present. I didn't want to miss the moments I couldn't get a replay on. I wanted to be there for my daughter's first steps and her first words and all of
Yes.
those sacred moments that you will take with you for your whole entire life,
Yes. Of
And
course.
I just knew I was out of alignment and out of integrity with how my life was set up and the way that I really truly wanted to be living.
That makes sense. Now, there's another concept in your book that kind of ties into what's called the positivity set point or the happiness set point. That we have kind of a range, possibly biologically developed, of happiness. So sometimes you have a great event like a lottery winner, but then after that period of time, they go back to more or less the happiness they had before. Or even people who have an accident may go back to the previous level of happiness after the accident. So there's kind of like a range. They say that like it may be half genetic, 50% genetic, and then 50% it can be something that we can change in our brain, the brain plasticity. So we can learn basically certain things to raise our happiness level. But other things are, let's say a set point. And I think you mentioned there's a lot of negativity in the world, negative news and negative things going on, and people tend to focus on the negative because,
Yeah.
biologically helps us survive. Obviously, back in
Right.
the caveman days, if there's a tiger coming at us, that's the negative part. We got to focus on that. But, we have different things today. We have, constant stimulation through technology. And one thing that they found that is interesting is that happiness, in terms of the internal side of it, there are three components. One is called internal locus of control, which is the idea that, we can control what happens to us, our ability or efforts, as opposed to luck or other people. People who have high internal locus actually are happier because they can, take care of their success and take responsibility for that. The other thing is they have positivity traits. And I think you mentioned gratitude is one. Having a gratitude journal, writing through things you're grateful for every day, actually increases happiness by 30%. Another thing is something called socialization, being able to be connected with people, having a social energy level. And also having what's called a no win-loss kind of paradigm. So in other words, you're cooperative instead of competitive.
Right.
So tell us about, I know you mentioned some of those things in your book. So tell us a little bit about how do we raise our happiness set point? How do we get a little bit higher in our happiness levels?
I really think that it's helpful to notice when you're not happy. I
Okay.
think that it's really helpful to notice the negativity bias and to
Yes.
understand that and how that works and to be paying attention to it. And I give an example of going to your local grocery store or convenience store, and how often do you ask the person, "How are you doing today?" And they're, "Oh, I can't wait till I get out of here," and it just those types of things, that hearing that messaging over and over again, and then participating in it and saying, "Oh, I hear ya,"
Yes.
the way, and trying to like engage there is a habit that it's only perpetuating that pattern. And so I think for us, it's about the pattern interrupt and paying attention to it. I think it's having the awareness of these concepts of, oh, right, I've been living in a competitive plane. I mean, I was a Division I athlete, and then I worked in Division I athletics. So let's
Yes.
talk about competition.
Okay.
It's like in my blood,
Right.
it's,
Well, I was
it's,
going to ask you
it's,
because you mentioned that cooperation or creativity is a better mindset, but in
yes,
sports, it's competitive, right? I mean, you're
it
not going to
is.
have a tie game. You got to beat your opponent. So,
Yes.
so how do you do that? You say competition is bad, but it can be good in some ways. How would
Well,
you
it
phrase it?
can be good, but I think for the sake of the game, right? And to remember
Yes.
that what we're talking about is a game.
Yes.
And also that game was tethered to my livelihood
Mm.
and my measurements of success. And
Yes.
so I think that's all just really interesting data to look at. Back then it was real for me that I wanted to win. I don't think you participate in those types of activities and not desire that. I still play soccer with a women's league, and you better believe I want to win when I'm on that
Okay,
field.
so you're a highly
But
competitive person. You like to,
I just, it's,
okay,
yeah, I am.
in some ways.
But I would also say, it's funny. So recently I had my website redesigned, and the agency said, asked in one of the queries, who is your competition? And I just wrote NA, because I really don't, I said, this
Yes,
isn't an applicable question for
yes,
me. I'm not in competition with anyone.
right.
This is my soul's calling. This is the work that I'm doing. And so,
Mm,
I have an interesting perspective on that. Of course, I want to win on the soccer field when I'm playing, but at the end of the day, it's not going to
yes,
ruin my day if I don't.
yes.
And in my business, I'm not competing with anyone. I'm not even competing with myself. That
Mm,
doesn't even make sense. I'm just
mm,
elevating myself.
mm,
And I think there's also another mantra that I really believe in, that I think for a lot of the women that I serve, feels like an exhale when I say it, but it's just very simply put, try softer.
mm.
Because we've been so socialized that there's this masculine model of achievement that we have to plug into in order to do. And the creative plane doesn't work that way. If you want to be in creation, it's really about softening. It's about opening. It's about seeing beyond. It's seeing the way under the way. It's
Mm.
tapping into the wellspring that's available to us in the unique way it wants to come through. And so
Mm.
that for me has been a mantra that I remind myself of. If I feel that grip kind of coming, the pressure feeling, the energy of I need to do all of these things,
Right.
I decide. I don't have to. I get to decide when I do things in my business. So, that's one of the most beautiful things about being an entrepreneur, is that you get to
Mm.
choose.
Yes. Well, it's kind of like the Eastern approach, Taoism, effortless effort, going with the
Yeah.
flow, as you
Yeah.
say, and reducing that effort that, can be contra to what you want.
Right.
And the other thing is, I was thinking, there is a lot of envy in society, and we
Mm.
call this upward comparison. Typically, when you compare yourself with someone who's doing better than you, you feel worse.
Yep.
If you compare yourself to someone who's doing worse than you feel better. But then we have what's called inward comparison, which is comparing yourself to the way you were, and as you're making improvements, you feel better, which is actually probably a more positive approach. They actually did a study where they found that people that win the lottery, their neighbors often go broke and bankrupt trying to keep up with
Wow.
them. They buy more things to keep up.
Wow.
So that's a problem. I can see that. Especially, I think you mentioned social media. People see people having
Yeah.
fun in Tahiti or something, and you're stuck, doing something. So that's the issue in terms of that, getting people to be less, down upward comparisons.
Yes.
What's your
Yeah.
what's your approach on that? How can you be content with what you
Oh,
have?
it is such a conversation that we have constantly. We coin it as comparisonitis, and the women that I work with, it's an ongoing topic. It's the caring what other people think, and the perception of what other people think, and trying
Yes.
to perform for that. And for me, the philosophy, and I'm certainly not immune to it. I still have my own challenges with that at times that are a bit subconscious. It's really something I'm trying to pay more attention to notice the places where it still comes up. But I think the bottom line is, I know what my soul's calling is. I know what my big vision is for my life, and no one else has that vision. And even if it sounds similar on paper, no two visions will be the same, because no two souls are the same.
So what is your soul's calling, Amber? Can you say it in a phrase, like one of those, little mission statement
Mm.
things?
Yeah, it's to come home to the truth of who I really am, and I think I'm going to keep doing that all the way until I leave this body. I mean, it's just that it is opening the portal to access, the unseen, and to be able to figure out how to, in some human way, express that. As a writer, writing is really important to me, and I have another book coming out in 2021 called Paddle Home.
No?
And it's the sub is surrendering to the stream of our true being, and that's the work. I want to continue to do that, and to continue to walk with others on the path to help them open and to retrieve that truth within themselves. I want to have more babies. I want
wow.
to do family and love well, and leave that legacy of love. That's really the most important thing that I could possibly
I
do.
like that legacy of love. Yeah, Love University. That's our whole idea,
Yes.
to extend
Yes.
loving energy without expectation.
That's right.
It's a
That's
powerful
so
thing,
beautiful.
unconditional. Now, the other thing is you talk about, this is kind of cool, is to be intentional with your word. Don Miguel Ruiz, you may know the 4 agreements,
Yeah.
he says, be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
So basically, your words have a lot of power, and the words you say to yourself can influence your mind. For example, you mentioned it's too expensive is a common word that people use, and that separates them from what they really want within themselves, their authenticity.
Right.
And you mentioned something about you had this big seminar that cost you like 5 figures or something. You were kind of afraid to go to because of the expense. And then you realize that if it's authentic to you, then it's worth it. So
Yeah.
what happened with that? What was that seminar, by the way, that you went to?
So it was a mastermind actually that I was invited to join, and I was really nervous, about it for a lot of the reasons what we just talked to about this
Yes.
comparisonitis thing. Like,
Right.
do I belong? Can I do this? And the investment level was the most that I would have ever made in my business to date, and
Yes.
so yeah. But I knew with 100% certainty that it was a fit, that energetically it felt right for me. I'm a generator in human design. So I have sacral authority, and I had a sacral beat drop. That's what I call it. Like, I just knew my gut was saying, you have to say yes to this. And it ultimately was an experience that helped me to help my husband end up ultimately retiring from his job. So
Wow.
there were so many amazing things that opened as a result of that experience. So I was just really mindful around my language, around it, and saying, in the present moment, I do not have all of the money I need to make this investment, but I do have enough to make a deposit. And so I did that, and I said and affirmed, I will bring the balance when I get there, when I come to LA for the event, which was like
Right.
a week or two later. And I did, and we launched a program, and I also think it's important to say here, it's not just a magic wand situation. I had built this audience. I had been working for this. I hadn't launched this program. It was like divine, perfect timing for me to put this offer out into the world.
What was the name of the seminar? Who put it on?
My friend Lewis House, and it was his Greatness Mastermind. And
okay.
and yeah, so I joined for that for 2 years actually.
Okay,
And
right.
it was just tremendous in terms of the types of people we got to meet and work with and
Right.
learn from, and publishers I got to connect with, and all of that. It was just a really beautiful, enriching experience.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, the words that we use are very important. Now, I often say to people, "Are you excited?" And they sometimes look at me funny. What do you mean excited? What are you excited about? So, like you said, a lot of people may have a more negativistic mindset.
Yeah.
But to say, what are you happy about? What are you, grateful about? Or positive things.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we get to, I guess, a very interesting thing. You must have loved M&Ms when you were a kid, because you had a lot of M's in your last phrase, right?
Yeah.
Did you like M&Ms as a kid, by the way?
I mean, I still like M&Ms.
Oh, you still like? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been to the Vegas? They have an M&M thing there, like a store.
I haven't, no,
Yeah,
but we'll have to put it on the list.
Yeah, it's
when
huge.
We
It's
travel
big.
again.
It's M&Ms. So you have something, I think you call it Master Your Money Equation,
Yeah.
and then Money Magnet. And then you have something like called the mission. The mission is, what you're doing and why. When I teach college psychology, we talk about motivation, and from the root motive, which means to move toward or away from something.
Right.
So I ask, why are you in college? Why are you sacrificing, your family, you're working and other things, to go to maybe a night class? And they say, well, I want a better career. So then I go deeper down. I ask, and why is that? I want to make more money. And I ask, well, why is that? So you got to go deeper down. Well, because when I was a kid, we struggled, and I want my family to have money. I say, why is that? I want my kids to be proud of me. I want to help them graduate from college and be the first or to go to college or something. So, I mean, things like that,
Right.
So going deeper down in that true motivation is what really propels them to do that if they know what it is.
That's
And
right.
sometimes people either don't appreciate or don't understand their motivation. So how did you find your motivation? I know you're a speaker, author, and all this, and you were doing the marketing thing. So what was inside you all this time?
Yeah, I love that question. Intrinsic motivation, it's something I've always had. And I think, if we go all the way, all the way deep down, I suffered and struggled a lot as a kid. I went through a pretty challenging experience as a really young child. I was sexually molested, and then I testified against my abuser in court. And I watched what it did to my family. I watched the suffering that my mom went through, of the guilt and the shame and the sorrow, because it was under a child care provider who happened to be an extended family member. And my mom was an entrepreneur, and she was a really, really successful and talented photographer. She had her own studio, and she was booking other photographers for corporate clients. And she was really ahead of her time. I mean, so much so that she was able to put the whole down payment on our home, our childhood home. And she sold her business, after this trauma happened. She sold it, and she never picked her camera up again. And I think that I saw her pain in the ways that it came forth. And I saw the dysfunction of my mom's family and how that impacted her and impacted us. And I just thought to myself, I remember as a young child, like really paying attention to these things, really paying attention to the nuances, noticing my friends' parents and how they lived and what was happening for them, and noticing what made my family happy, and noticing where there was struggle, and just taking a lot of notes and thinking, I want to create a different reality. I want to live a different reality, and I want to be able to give back. I want to help my family. I definitely, there's a lot of like fixer energy in there, that was certainly not helpful. I had an eating disorder for about 15 years, from my teen years into my 20s. While I was an athlete, I was able to really like hide it there, but it was simply a coping mechanism, as you know how these things play out.
Yes.
Because there was unresolved emotional trauma that I was still trying to work through, and it was a control mechanism for me to feel safe. And so I think really at the core, it was, I want to create a different reality for us. I want to show my parents that I'm okay.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I can see that. That's going deep down into the true motivation.
Right in there. Go all the way down and get to the roots.
You're going to get to it. And
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist that was in concentration camps in Nazi Germany, he said, if you know the why, you can bear any how.
That's right.
And then, some of those people had a reason to live. For example, I want to see my grandchildren graduate from college. I want to write a book and see my family again. And others didn't, and they didn't survive the 4 or 5 years. So the ones that had the why survived, the meaning in life, the purpose. Now, the other thing you talk about is also momentum, or actually motion. Motion is taking action. And here's where a lot of people have a problem. I think you talk about procrastination. And I think you mentioned the term launch ugly, which means like just get it out there. And also I talk about their writing, right? Maybe something crappy, but just get it out there. And
get it out there.
And start to get the motion. Is that something important to you to just get it out there?
Absolutely. And I think as an athlete, it was a great place for me to learn that. How many days I couldn't even count the number of days that I didn't want to go to practice or go to the field by myself and kick the ball because I didn't have anyone to play with for a lot of years, and I would just kick it and do sprints and learn how to kick a long ball and practice and do it a million times. And but I had that goal, I had that target, that motivation. And so if you don't have that, then why would you get in motion? It doesn't make any sense, So I think it's really understanding that deep why, connecting to that and getting at it, and also getting help if it's hard for you to do that. There's nothing wrong with being confused about your why or feeling like an imposter when it comes to your why and feeling like, who am I to have this vision? I think anyone who's ever had a big dream has probably felt that way. But I think motion, obviously, it's you don't get from point A, point B without motion.
Right. They say once the body is in motion, it often stays in motion.
Yeah.
And you need that little incremental goal. Like say, I want to work out at the gym for 15, 20 minutes the first time and maybe 30, and kind of build it up. You get in the flow, as they say, so you start to get that power. And then finally, I think you have what is called magnetism, which I think of like charisma, people that really believe in something powerful, and then they attract people to work with them and help them. And if they have the value, others come to that. So that's a very powerful thing. Now, can you teach magnetism or charisma? What if someone is uncharismatic? They're kind of, not that charismatic. Can you help them with that?
I think so. I think what it comes down to is if they're creating motion, which ultimately leads to momentum, and they have momentum in what it is that they're doing, and that there's value there, you can magnetize with that. We don't all have to be, at the level of our favorite performer or singer in order to have success. Chances are, if you aren't that charismatic, that might not be your goal anyway, because that would make you really uncomfortable because it would push you to have to step beyond, but I think there are so many different shades of what that looks like and out there. And that's one of the most beautiful things about being human is that we don't all have the same favorite singer, performer, writer. My favorite author is Mark Nepo, and there are so many people that have no idea who he is. And I just go, how do you not know who Mark Nepo is?
Is he self-help or is he something else?
Oh my gosh. You
got some books of him?
Oh yeah, of course. This was his book, The Book of Awakening.
Cool. Okay.
Was Oprah. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's called Having the Life You Want by Being Present to the Life That You Have. Okay. It's a well-loved book. I have many of his books. He's been on my podcast 3 times. And he's really to talk, here to talk about that inner journey and that inner discovery process. So, and you don't even know who he is, and which I can't wait. I'm so excited now that you get to get some Mark Nepo books.
I like that. Hopefully I'll be your second best author if you read Love Types or something, one of my books.
Oh yeah, I will do that.
Now let me ask you, what's one of the biggest investments you've ever made that paid off for you? And it could be time, energy, money, whatever it is. I know you mentioned the seminar, but besides that, anything else, meeting your husband, I guess, or whatever else that you did.
Oh my gosh. What a question. I think Yeah, it was meeting my husband and making the decision. My husband and I, we both were a second marriage.
Okay.
We both were married in our 20s to our
Mm.
first marriages,
Ah.
very short lived.
Mm.
And then, we got married. How old was I? I must have been like 29, or
Wow.
30.
So
But
you weren't afraid to get back in the thing again? I mean, some people take
you
time
know,
off because the pain of it.
that's a good question. I think the way it was just, we just knew, we met and we just knew. And I think that is trusting that, trusting that love, even though we both were shaky. Because what our marriage has done, has opened, the doorway for everything, for my opportunity to be a mother, for this amazing place that we get to live. We live on a lake in New Hampshire, and
Wow.
it's, as I said, bald eagle and hawks, and this just amazing place where I get to reconvene and connect with nature in a really deep way.
Yes.
We give each other the love and the support in an unconditional way to go forth and do what our soul's callings are. And we've really set our life up that way. And so, yeah, his partnership, his friendship, his love and support is really the
Wow.
greatest gift. Yeah.
I hope he's listening to this right now. Is he getting sentimental over there somewhere in the corner?
He's picking our daughter up from school right now, but he'll probably listen later.
Okay, that's great. That's a little love story that you have.
Yeah.
Now, if you could tweet one phrase to the world, what would that phrase be?
It would be, if the dream is in you, it's for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah.
So it has to be the passion within yourself, and that can be something manifested eventually.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, is there anyone in your life do you consider to be a superhero? That could be some people actually like the superhero cartoon stuff, or maybe a role model, alive or dead. Who would that be? I know you mentioned this author. What was his name again?
Mark Nepo, Nepo.
Okay, Nepo. But I mean, otherwise, you could say your parents. I don't know, or
Yeah.
God.
Well,
I mean,
my mom for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, my mom has overcome so much, and she's resilient, and she's taught me, everything at the core, and she's kept our family together through so many challenging times, and
Wow.
she's really helped my brother and I think create the families that we have in so many ways by setting that example and persevering. And I mean, as a kid growing up, my mom was working at sometimes 3 jobs, and she would come home from work and still make dinner, light candles, put music on, and we would have that experience, every single night. And we do that here in our family. And so,
really?
Yeah, I think she just really helped us to live in our values and what really matters the most, and to not forget the importance of family.
I see. Well, it's been so wonderful having you on the show. Now, I want to find out, what are you excited about in terms of your activities? I know you do coaching, speaking, writing. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and tell us your website, and where can we learn more about you?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm over at amberlilyestrom.com, and you can check out the podcast over there and all the programs and things like that. We're right at the end of the time we're having this conversation. It's the end of 2020. And so we're planning into the new year. We have our Born for This program coming up again, starting in January, in my Inner Circle Mastermind, which is a year-long journey with an intimate group of like 14 or so women. With in-person retreats, which we are totally crossing our fingers about as we look to the horizon of 2021. And also the book Paddle Home that I told you about. And another book I co-wrote with a dear friend. It's called Quantum Wealth. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it all. There's so many fun things going on. I'm excited that I get to go to my daughter's riding lesson this afternoon and watch her ride. It's like, each day is different, and
wow. You sound like a Gemini. You have so many things going. Do you know
I'm a Virgo, actually.
Oh, Virgo.
But,
okay. My son's a Virgo. Okay.
Oh,
so they're very stable and kind of very powerfully minded. So let me see. So you do the coaching. You do coaching one-on-one too, as well?
I do through the Inner Circle Mastermind. So yeah, group coaching, group coaching programs, and then the Inner Circle has the one-to-one component.
Okay, you have some tapes and things like some kind of tape programs and all that.
Yeah, I have a couple downloadable programs, Brand You Breakthrough, and a couple others. And yeah, I just encourage you to go check out the site and see what feels exciting to you, and explore.
Tell us that, because I was trying to figure out your name, and it was kind of tricky. Lilyestrom, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
How do you spell that for the people, the website part of it?
Oh, yeah. Great. Lilyestrom.
Okay.
And we love it because Lilyestrom has the word yes in it.
Oh, are you serious? Okay. That's wonderful. Was it wonderful having you on the show? And if anyone wants to talk to us about the show and have questions, you can reach us at loveuniversity.love. Write to us at loveuniversity@gmail.com. Call us at 310-226-8090. And again, Amber, it's been wonderful having you on the show. We'd love to have you on again. I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on. Apparently, you're a whirlwind of love and activity. So we definitely like that. And the idea is, love and prosperity go together. Loving yourself, others, and loving a higher nature, whether it's God or spirit, whatever you believe in. So if you have all those three connected, then prosperity, wealth, and everything good in life comes to you, which is not just money. I mean, money is part of it, but it can also be wealth and finance, wealth and love, wealth and health, wealth and happiness.
Amen.
Amber,
thank you, my friend.
Thanks for being on the show. Okay. That was a great interview with Amber Lilyestrom, an amazing woman who's done a great deal in her life, coaching, speaking, writing, inspiring many women and also men to be their best, to find their inner passion, their love, and to actualize it, to make it come true. Because if you have it inside you, but you don't express it, then it's like it's not doing much. But you want to achieve your greatest don, as we say in Spanish, don divino, your great talent or gift, and use it to help society and others as well as your own family and yourself. If you want to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, you can reach us at Love Letter U Podcast. Also, you can like us on Facebook at Love University Podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Podbean. And write to us at loveuniversitylove@gmail.com. Until next time, Dr. Alex Avila, Love University. So go out this week and have the money mind of success and the riches, not just financial, but also in love and health and happiness. Give to others, be grateful for everything you have, and be optimistic that the world will become a better place. Until next time, Dr. Alex Avila, put away your notebook, your iPads, your phones. This is Love University.